Perhaps this has made you feel strange before. The doorbell rings on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Someone wants to come in, pay a visit, have a conversation. But inside you feel a discomfort, an inner resistance, a deep urge to simply say no. Your heart sinks slightly, and you find yourself wishing they would just go away. You don't hate people, and you're not angry at the world. You might even genuinely care about the person standing at your door. But to be honest, you simply don't enjoy having visitors. You prefer your quiet home, your undisturbed routine, your preserved energy, the sacred rhythm you've created for yourself. If this sounds familiar, take a deep breath, because in this video, we're going to talk about something that hardly anyone openly admits. The real, intimate, and often misunderstood discomfort of people who cannot bear it when someone enters their personal space. And no, you're neither rude nor antisocial. You're not broken, selfish, or emotionally damaged. According to Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology and one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century, this behavior may point to something much deeper within your nature, something that speaks to the very architecture of your soul. Today, I'll show you profound insights from Jung that explain why some people simply don't like having visitors and why that is not only natural, but could also be a sign of a valuable inner psychological process unfolding within you. So stay with us, because if you've ever felt guilty for wanting to be alone, if you've ever questioned whether something was wrong with you for preferring solitude, you may realize today that this has much more to do with your psychological development and spiritual growth than with any character flaw or social inadequacy. Have you ever wondered why some people thrive during social gatherings, parties, and home visits, lighting up like Christmas trees when company arrives, while you, on the other hand, feel drained just at the thought of having guests? Or maybe you enjoy talking, you have good relationships, you can be charming and engaging in the right circumstances, but as soon as someone wants to enter your home, something in you recoils. It's as if the mere presence of another person in your sacred space exhausts your energy before they've even taken off their coat. And there's a profound explanation for that, one that goes to the very heart of how your psyche is structured. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, was the first to popularize two now widely known terms that have revolutionized our understanding of human personality: introverted and extroverted. But don't be mistaken, this isn't just about shyness or sociability, about being quiet in groups or preferring small gatherings. Jung wasn't talking about social behavior in the superficial sense, but about something far more fundamental: the movement of psychic energy, the very life force that animates your being. The extrovert directs their energy outward like sunlight radiating from a star. They're nourished by contact and external stimulation. The outside world gives them strength, fills their batteries, makes them feel alive and connected. The more people around them, the more vibrant they become. The introvert, on the other hand, functions almost in the opposite way, like a deep well that draws its water from underground springs. They recharge from within. Their source of energy is silence, introspection, solitude, the quiet communion with their own inner world. When they are overly exposed to the external world, to long conversations, unexpected visitors, noise, or interruptions, their mind begins to shut down, not out of arrogance or superiority, but out of psychological necessity, like a flower closing its petals when the sun becomes too intense. And this is the key point that changes everything. Not liking to receive visitors is not a social deficit or a personality disorder. It is a direct expression of how your energy is structured, how your soul breathes, how your psyche maintains its delicate balance. If you're more introverted, and many people are without even realizing the full depth of what that means, then your home is not just a physical place with walls and furniture. It's a sacred space, a cocoon, a sanctuary where your energy reorganizes itself, where your psyche finds the equilibrium it needs to function in an often overwhelming world. When someone enters that space, even with the best of intentions, even someone you love and care about, they touch invisible threads you've been carefully sorting out all day. The mere presence of the other person forces you to activate what Jung called your persona, your social mask, the carefully constructed version of yourself that you present to the world. And in doing so, you move away from your true self, from that deep, authentic core that can only exist in solitude and silence. And you know what? That is deeply, profoundly exhausting in ways that most people simply cannot understand. Jung said that introversion is not a conscious choice, but a disposition of the soul, written into the very fabric of your being like a genetic code of consciousness. So when you try to go against this inner impulse, when you force yourself to be social when every fiber of your being is calling for solitude, it only leads to more inner conflict, more exhaustion, more disconnection from your authentic self. You're not being difficult or antisocial. You're simply honoring the deeper architecture of your psyche, the way your soul is designed to function in this world. Some might say, oh, they're so reserved. They just don't like company. They're probably just antisocial. But what many don't see, what remains hidden beneath the surface, is this profound truth. What seems like coldness or disinterest is often just self-protection, a psychological shield, an invisible boundary erected by the unconscious mind to guard the inner self from depletion and overwhelm. And understanding this changes everything about how you see yourself and your needs. Carl Jung called this deeper protective process the shadow. And the shadow, well, it's a part of you that you may not even fully know exists, but it's there quiet, hidden, powerful, and it governs your feelings, your reactions, your deepest discomfort in ways that your conscious mind cannot fully grasp. The shadow is like an invisible guardian that watches over your psychological well-being, and it knows things about what you need that your rational mind hasn't yet figured out. When someone enters your home, you're not just opening a physical door made of wood and metal. You're unconsciously letting them into a space where your energy is at its purest, but also at its most vulnerable, like allowing a stranger to see you without makeup, without pretense, without the carefully constructed defenses you carry in the outside world. And that's exactly where the shadow begins to act with an intelligence that might surprise you. The shadow contains everything you've suppressed for some reason, everything you've had to push down to fit into the world. Aspects of your personality you had to hide to be accepted, old fears that still whisper in quiet moments, unresolved memories that carry emotional charge, unspoken wounds that haven't fully healed. It's not just darkness, as many people think. The shadow also holds your unexpressed creativity, your wild authenticity, your untamed truth that the world might not have been ready to receive. It's everything that makes you fully human, fully real, fully you. Imagine this scenario that might feel hauntingly familiar. Someone rings the bell on an afternoon when you were perfectly content in your solitude. You sit down together, start talking about ordinary things, and instead of relaxing into the conversation, you feel uneasy inside, like something is crawling under your skin. A strange discomfort rises up, a kind of restlessness that you can't quite name, and sometimes you can't even explain why you're feeling this way. The person seems nice enough, the conversation is pleasant enough, but something deep within you is saying, no, this doesn't feel right, I want this to end. The truth that Jung discovered is this. The presence of that person, their voice, their way of being, their energy field, might unconsciously touch a blind spot in your psyche, something you haven't yet dared to look at directly, something that lives in the shadow realm of your consciousness. Maybe their confidence triggers your suppressed insecurity. Maybe their neediness activates your buried resentment about always having to be the caregiver. Maybe their casual intrusion reminds you of childhood moments when your boundaries weren't respected. The shadow knows all of this before your conscious mind has even begun to process what's happening. That's why Jung said something that has become one of his most quoted insights. What you do not bring into consciousness will appear in your life as fate. And sometimes that fate manifests as social discomfort, as a seemingly harmless visit that suddenly stirs up irritation you didn't know you were carrying, a sense of invasion that seems disproportionate to the actual situation, an almost physical urge to ask the person to leave that feels both urgent and inexplicable. It's not arrogance or cruelty. It's your unconscious trying to protect your inner integrity, your authentic self, The part of you that knows exactly what it needs, even when your polite, socialized mind is trying to override those deeper impulses. But here's something beautiful that Jung discovered about the shadow. It doesn't just contain what we think of as negative or problematic aspects of ourselves. The shadow also holds hidden potential, dormant abilities, suppressed talents, and profound truths you haven't yet had the courage to embrace. The more you live only on the surface, adapting to social expectations, staying perpetually polite, forcing yourself into interactions that drain you, the less room your soul has to breathe, to expand, to become what it's meant to become. The shadow is saying, there's more to you than this. There's a deeper truth trying to emerge. So if you feel that almost irresistible need to be alone, if the thought of visitors overwhelms you before they even arrive, your shadow might be saying something profoundly important. Hey, listen carefully. You need silence not because you're broken, but because you're growing. You need space not because you're antisocial, but because you're integrating. You need yourself not because you're selfish, but because there's something trying to be born in you that can only happen in solitude. And hearing that inner voice, trusting that deeper wisdom, is actually an act of tremendous courage. Do you know that feeling of profound relief when you finally come home after a long day of being on for other people when the door closes behind you? You take off your shoes, take a deep breath, and you can finally just be? In Jungian psychology, the home is not just a physical structure made of bricks and mortar. It's a symbol of the soul itself, a living metaphor for your inner state, your psychological condition, your spiritual well-being. It reflects where you are in your journey toward wholeness, toward what Jung called individuation. When someone enters that space, they're not just stepping into your living room or kitchen. They are entering sacred territory, crossing an invisible threshold that separates your public self from your private self, your persona from your authentic being. Jung believed that symbols speak more truth about us than words ever could, and the house is one of the most powerful symbols in the human psyche. It represents the self in all its complexity, the center of our being where everything finds its proper place, where healing happens, where we return to remember who we really are. Each room in your house symbolizes a different aspect of your inner world, your psychological landscape. The bedroom represents your most intimate self, your vulnerability, your dreams, both sleeping and waking. The living room embodies your social mask, the face you show to others, the version of yourself that knows how to make pleasant conversation. The kitchen symbolizes emotional nourishment, the way you feed yourself and others, literally and metaphorically. The basement holds your unconscious, all the things you've forgotten or prefer not to look at. The attic contains your higher thoughts, your aspirations, your spiritual longings. And the front door, that crucial boundary, is the place where you decide what gets in and what stays out, what you're ready to share, and what needs to remain protected. When someone crosses that threshold without invitation, or when you feel pressured to open that door when every instinct is telling you to keep it closed, your unconscious senses that something from the outside world is entering your most sacred space, bringing with it foreign energy, unprocessed emotions, other people's stories and tensions and needs. And if you're a sensitive person, an introverted soul, or someone on the path of what Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your truest self, this intrusion can feel not just uncomfortable, but almost violent to your system, like having someone rearrange your inner furniture without permission. Have you ever put on that polite smile when deep down in your bones you just wanted to sit in silence? Made coffee with hands that felt heavy, engaged in small talk while your mind was screaming for quiet, acted friendly and welcoming while secretly counting the minutes and thinking, when is this visit going to end? How much longer do I have to perform this version of myself? It sounds harsh when you say it out loud, doesn't it? You feel ungrateful, heartless, like there's something fundamentally wrong with your capacity for human connection. But don't worry, because Carl Jung helps us understand exactly what's happening within you, and it's far more complex and beautiful than simple rudeness or social inadequacy. Jung called it the persona, and this concept will change how you see every social interaction for the rest of your life. The persona is the mask we wear to show ourselves to the world, but it's not a fake mask or a deceptive one. It's the social role, the carefully crafted version of ourselves that knows how to adapt to work environments, to family dynamics, to friendships, even to an unexpected visit on a Tuesday afternoon. The persona isn't false, but it is limited, like wearing a beautiful costume that fits well but restricts your movement. It's not your whole soul, just a fragment of your full self, usually the most socially acceptable, agreeable, and non-threatening piece of who you are. The problem begins when you have to wear this mask in your own home, in the one place on earth where you should be able to be completely, authentically, messily yourself. For people with a particularly strong persona, and this includes many introverted, sensitive, highly observant individuals who learned early in life to read rooms and adapt to others' needs, a visit can be extraordinarily draining in ways that other people simply cannot comprehend. Suddenly, without warning, you have to perform. You have to choose your words carefully, control your facial expressions, monitor your tone of voice, keep track of the flow of conversation. Think about whether the dishes in the sink make you look slovenly. Worry about whether the light in the room is too bright or too dim, whether you should offer food, whether your house smells okay. All of that consumes tremendous amounts of psychic energy, the same energy you need for your own inner work, your own processing, your own soul's daily maintenance. Jung said something profound about this. The persona is necessary for functioning in society. It helps us navigate complex social situations with grace. But when we mistake the persona for our true self, when we forget there's a whole universe of authentic being underneath that mask, the soul begins to cry out. And perhaps that's exactly why you feel such visceral resistance to visits. It's not about disliking people or being antisocial. It's about feeling forced to abandon yourself, to pretend, to uphold a socially acceptable image when all your deepest self wants is permission to exist without performance. And do you know what's even more exhausting? Many people spend years, sometimes decades, wearing their persona even in their most private spaces. They welcome guests, make elaborate efforts, smile until their faces hurt, and are internally completely depleted, irritated, running on empty, but they keep doing it because they think that's what good people do. They think that's what love looks like. But here comes a liberating truth that's grounded in the deepest wisdom of analytical psychology. You have the absolute right to be completely yourself in your own space. You are allowed to say no to visits without justification. You are allowed to decline invitations, to be unavailable, to protect your energy, because while you're trying so hard to please others and meet their expectations, you are systematically abandoning the most important relationship in your life, the relationship with your own authentic self. There are moments when your soul calls for silence, not out of drama or depression or antisocial tendencies, but because something deep within you is trying to emerge, to integrate, to heal, and that process requires stillness. In such moments, many people feel strange, selfish, like they're failing at being human. After all, we live in a culture that celebrates and rewards those who are constantly available, always around people, loud, active, visible, productive. We live in a world that equates solitude with loneliness and mistakes introversion for social failure. But Carl Jung saw it completely differently, and his perspective offers a radically different way of understanding your need for space. For Jung, the impulse to withdraw from social demands wasn't a pathology or a character flaw. It was often the beginning of one of life's most important and sacred journeys, the path of individuation. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming who you were born to be, not what society expects, not what your parents projected onto you, not the persona you've carefully constructed to fit in and be accepted, but your true self with all its light and shadow, conscious and unconscious elements, with your essence and your truth fully integrated and expressed. And this profound process of becoming whole doesn't happen in noise, in constant stimulation, in the middle of social obligations and other people's energy. It happens in silence, in retreat, in the pause between breaths, in the sacred space of solitude where you can finally hear the whisper of your own soul. That's why your discomfort with visitors isn't just preference or personality quirk. It's your soul trying to protect the conditions necessary for your deepest growth, keeping you away from distractions so you can hear what is being whispered in the depths of your being, what wants to be born, what's ready to emerge. There's something inside you that wants to surface, something that's been waiting patiently for the right conditions, for enough silence and space and safety. But for that delicate process to unfold, you need time alone, real alone time, not just physical solitude, but psychological solitude, emotional solitude, spiritual solitude. Jung said it with crystal clarity. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to express what truly matters to you. And what could be more important, more essential, more urgent than listening to the deepest truth of who you are? But how can that sacred listening happen in the middle of social obligations, with guests who won't leave, in conversations that skim along the surface and never touch the soul? How can you hear your own inner voice when someone else's energy is filling up your space, demanding your attention, requiring your persona to be activated and maintained? The truth that Jung understood is this: some phases of life demand conscious solitude, not as an escape from reality, but as a deeper immersion into what's real. You don't withdraw to disappear from life. You withdraw to prepare yourself to return to life more fully, more clearly, more authentically yourself than ever before. Picture in your mind an old man with a long white beard, holding a lantern in his weathered hand, walking alone through the dark night on a quiet, winding path that only he can see. This is the classic image of the hermit, an ancient figure that carries profound meaning in Jungian psychology and speaks directly to your soul's deepest needs. Jung understood that the hermit is an archetype, a primordial image, a universal energy that lives within each of us, even if we don't always recognize it or have the courage to embody it fully. But what does this mystical figure have to do with you, with your desire not to receive visitors, with your need to be alone in your own home? Everything. The hermit symbolizes the inner call for withdrawal, for wisdom, for deep self-knowledge that can only be found in solitude. It's the sacred impulse that drives you to close the door, turn off your phone, and create a sanctuary where your soul can breathe without interruption. The hermit doesn't live in silence because he's antisocial or damaged or afraid of the world. He lives in silence because he knows, with ancient wisdom, that only in stillness does the brightest inner light appear. Only in solitude does the voice of truth become audible. Only in withdrawal from the noise of the world can the deepest healing take place. This archetype doesn't represent empty loneliness or pathological isolation, the kind that comes from fear or trauma or depression. Instead, it represents the tremendous courage required to look inward, to face your own shadows and doubts and fears, and in doing so, to discover your own inner light, your own wisdom, your own truth that no one else can give you or take from you. The hermit understands something that our culture has largely forgotten, that the most important journey you will ever take is the journey inward, and that journey requires sacred space, protected time, and the willingness to be alone with yourself. If you feel that almost irresistible desire not to host guests, to remain in your own quiet sanctuary, to protect the delicate atmosphere you've created in your home, then it may very well be your inner hermit calling to you. He's asking you to slow down, not to lose yourself in the noise and demands of the outer world, but to reconnect with your core being, with the part of you that knows exactly what you need even when your rational mind is confused or conflicted. Jung believed that answering this call isn't just beneficial for mental and emotional health. It's absolutely essential for the development of a whole, integrated, authentic human being. And you know what? Following the path of the hermit is also an act of profound resistance against the frantic pace of our modern world, against superficial relationships that drain your energy, against the constant cultural pressure to be available and social and on all the time. It's an act of radical self-love, of soul care, of honoring the deepest part of yourself that knows what it needs to thrive. So the next time someone questions why you prefer to be alone, why you don't want visitors, why you need so much space and silence, remember the hermit within you. He stands there with his lantern, showing you that true illumination, real wisdom, authentic peace, all of these are born only after you've had the courage to enter your own inner darkness and emerge with your own light burning brightly. The hermit teaches us that solitude, when embraced consciously and intentionally, transforms into something far more powerful than mere alone time. In that sacred space of intentional withdrawal, you begin to find answers that the noise of the world has drowned out for years. You allow yourself to feel deeply without having to explain or justify your emotions to anyone else. You give yourself permission to think, to reflect, to process your experiences without the pressure of social interaction or the need to maintain your persona. And slowly, gradually, your soul begins to heal from the countless small wounds of daily life, the compromises, the adaptations, the ways you've had to diminish yourself to fit into other people's expectations. In this deep solitude, you learn to recognize patterns in your life that you couldn't see when you were constantly responding to external demands. You begin to integrate your shadow aspects, those parts of yourself you've kept hidden, and discover that they often contain tremendous gifts and untapped potential. You start to uncover parts of your authentic self that have been buried under years of social conditioning and people-pleasing. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to develop a quiet inner strength and unshakable confidence that doesn't depend on external validation or approval from others. But how do you honor this hermit energy while still maintaining the human connections that nourish your soul? Jung taught that a truly healthy life doesn't mean completely denying the social world or isolating yourself permanently. Instead, it means establishing a conscious, intentional dialogue between your need for solitude and your capacity for authentic connection. The hermit calls for silence, withdrawal, and introspection. The outer world demands engagement, activity, and participation. The art of wholeness lies in learning to respect your boundaries without shutting yourself off completely, and in refusing to force yourself into social interactions when you're not internally ready for them. This balance requires a daily practice of deep listening, listening to your body, your emotions, your energy levels, your soul's actual needs rather than what you think you should need. You can create sacred rituals that protect your quiet time. Morning solitude with coffee and silence. Evening walks alone with your thoughts, weekends devoted entirely to your own inner world. At the same time, you can choose intentional, meaningful moments to connect with people who truly nourish you, who respect your need for space, who understand that your withdrawal is not rejection but self-care. The most beautiful thing about this path is that you don't have to justify it to anyone. You owe no explanations, no apologies, no lengthy defenses of your choices. Society may not understand your need for so much solitude, but your soul knows exactly what it requires to flourish. And Jung said something that should be written on every introvert's mirror. Individuation means becoming true to yourself, even when the world demands otherwise. So allow yourself this sacred path. Honor the hermit within you while cultivating genuine connections that feed your soul instead of depleting it. When you find this balance, solitude no longer becomes a burden or a source of guilt, but a sacred space for renewal, for becoming, for growing into the fullest expression of who you were meant to be. If you take away just one insight from this exploration into your soul's need for solitude, let it be this: your way of being in the world is not only valid, it's essential. Your love of silence, your need for space, your resistance to visitors, these are not character flaws or social inadequacies. They are the authentic expression of a soul that knows what it needs to grow, to heal, to become whole. And that deserves not just respect from others, but above all, deep respect and honoring from yourself. We've reached the end of this journey into the hidden wisdom of your solitary soul. But in truth, your real journey is only just beginning. Together, we've explored Carl Jung's profound insights about why some souls need more solitude than others. We've met the archetype of the hermit that lives within you, and we've discovered how your need for space is actually a sacred calling toward your most authentic self. Now I invite you to look inward with gentleness and recognition. Understand that your desire to be alone is not a weakness, but a reflection of deep inner wisdom. Know that your boundaries are not walls of selfishness, but acts of profound self-care. And remember that right there, in the quiet sanctuary of your own space, you hold the infinite possibility to bloom more fully into who you were always meant to be. If this message resonated with your soul, if you finally feel seen and understood in your need for solitude, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights into the hidden wisdom of your psyche. And most importantly, leave a comment below sharing your own experience. Do you also feel that deep resistance when the doorbell rings unexpectedly? I'd love to hear your story and connect with others who walk this beautiful, solitary path toward wholeness.